Well, hello, vendors. How are you? Guys, I have bad news. Once again, there's a school shooting in Nashville. Apparently, a 17-year-old went on to Antioch High School in Nashville, went to the cafeteria where he unalived. Can you tell us the definition of unalived? No, I'm not allowed. Where he unalived a 17-year-old female, or a female. I'm not exactly sure how old she was, but he also, I guess, clipped another student. So he injured one, took out another, and then took himself out. They don't know why exactly he did this, but it happened in the school cafeteria. And they spoke to one of the senior students there at Antioch. His name was Ahmad Salah. I think it's Antioch High School, excuse me. He said, I was trying to help people. My mind was so cluttered, didn't know what to do. Could you imagine that? You're in a situation where you hear gunshots, people start running all around, you don't know exactly which way is up, and now you have to kind of try to stay level-headed, get out of wherever you are safely, and make sure you don't run right into the clutches of the bad guy. Let's be honest, if that happened, a lot of people would probably not know which way to go. And I could see you running right towards the gunman. The gunman looks at you running at him like, oh, you're gonna try to do something? And then he takes you out too, all because you didn't really pay attention to where the gunshots came from. Apparently he said, get this is what I thought was kind of enraging about it. He was asked by the reporter if the school had officers or security. And he said, yeah, we always do have police officers on campus, not canvas, but for whatever reason, they weren't in the cafeteria. So at least there were a police presence on the campus, just not where they ate. But then she asked him another question. Did you guys have metal detectors here at the school? This is the one that was a little enraging. He said that yes, a couple months back, they did have metal detectors, but for whatever reason, those were removed. And that just makes you wonder, why were they removed? Was it school budgets, right? Was it, a situation where you just couldn't afford it anymore, which apparently it was. Here's the thing that doesn't make sense to me about our government. You know all those cameras we have at the corners that take pictures of our cars and they send us tickets in the mail? Hi, how's it going?
I'm on, what's the name of the store?
So you know how they have those traffic cameras where if you run a red light, they send you a picture and a ticket. If you speed past them, right, they send you a picture and a ticket. Apparently, our government, at the state level, mind you, is so inept, some way, somehow, they lose money on those things. Not only does it take away from actual policemen having a role and a job, but then some way, somehow they lose money on those things. Take this over to the metal detector argument here for the school. Apparently they have to pay some third company a service fee for those metal detectors. Does anyone else agree with me? It seems like something you should just be able to buy from a company, actually pay for them. And then somebody should be able to run them. I mean, how difficult is it just to let people go through the metal detector, and if it detects metals, it beeps. And then you have a police officer right there that can actually wave his metal detector wand over a certain area and find out where you're holding the weapon. Well, it's not a weapon, it's just my belt buckle. I'm Earl. I don't even know if you actually need full-blown metal detectors. Couldn't you just have a bunch of policemen that have the metal detecting wands on them? And couldn't you just make it where every day as people come in, you have to be metal detectored? Here's another thing that's crazy. For all I know, this student might have just broken into campus at lunchtime. I don't know how campuses are locked down nowadays, but when I was younger, a lot of our campuses are kind of open. So you have access to the campuses in between classes. In theory, even if you weren't a student there, you could probably walk right onto campus, just walk with the flow of the students, and no one would know any different, you know? Anyway, that's a sad situation. We're going to go over a couple comments from that, but let's also go over a little bit what they also said today that was kind of in the news. So anyway, Russia, I guess, in their state media is kind of poking fun at Donald Trump because Donald Trump said that, hey, within 24 hours of me taking back over as president, I'll make sure that both Russia and Ukraine sign a peace deal so we can get out of this never-ending war. Here's the thing, though. It was on CNN's station, you know? And on the station itself and when they were showing clips, it didn't really look like they were making fun of Trump at all. As a matter of fact, they actually showed more of Trump than of the Russian media source, right? And Trump was basically saying, Zelensky wants to deal. I don't know if Putin does. He might not. I don't know. I think he should make a deal. I think he's destroying Russia by not making a deal. And then Putin supposedly said that both he and she, so she and Putin, stand together no matter what Trump does. So it sounds like going forth, Russia and China are united against us, and it sounds like Trump might not be able to make this peace deal happen right away after all. I think a lot of us kind of knew that it would be a little bit easier said than done. With that being said, though, I think it is great that overall he wants to get that war finished, because let's be honest, if that war just keeps on going, eventually they're going to run out of people to fight in Ukraine, and eventually Russia is going to take over, and then if the war is still going, who's next? The rest of the world? So hopefully we can get that war stopped. If you disagree with me and you want that war to go forever, let me know and maybe give us some reasons. But I think it would be great if that war stopped. I don't know if you guys have heard, but supposedly both sides altogether have, 2, 3, 4, 500,000 people that have lost their lives. I think they have another, 250,000 people that are permanently maimed and disabled. We don't need that war to go on anymore, and let's be honest, none of us wants to jump into any worldwide conflict at all. I was watching this video, and I know you guys are like me. You guys watch multiple videos a day on different subjects that you find interesting. I watched this video, and this guy brought up the same thing that I was talking about. He was talking about this idea that it would be so easy for terrorist organizations just to go and start forest fires all over the US. And he was saying that ISIS actually had a game plan to do just that, get multiple cells in this country and then go all the way from Washington State down to Arizona and light every forested area in between, and you could literally cripple the western part of the United States. And so today I find out that there's this new fire called the Hughes Fire. And once again, guys, it's in LA County. What makes these fires in LA so odd is that this is normally the time of the year where, because the weather's cold, it's snowing or raining, there's a lot of moisture in the air, usually they don't have to worry about forest fires. But of course, as you guys all know, they're dealing with quite a few forest fires over the last couple of weeks. And get this, guys, it is burning 30 acres a minute. It has burnt through 5,000 acres in its first 3 hours burning. So it's almost like those people in LA County cannot catch a break. Everybody's losing their home, and it looks like the fires are still out of control. So here's my question for you. Let's talk about this real quick. Do you guys think this is really just some random lightning bolt that's hitting out of the blue? Or do you think it's some guy that, maybe he's accidentally throwing a cigarette butt out his window as he's driving through these forested areas? Or do you think it's more than likely an individual that's deliberately starting these fires? If it's an individual that's starting the fires, it's one of two things. it's either on accident or on purpose. If it's on purpose, it's either one of two things. He or she is either acting alone or they're potentially part of a group. Do you guys think that there's a chance that these actually could be purposely started fires from some sort of terrorist organization? It's kind of crazy, kind of fascinating, because it's kind of a new way to start a war. If you want to kill 30 or 40 people, you just start gigantic fires everywhere. One of the problems with firemen, and a lot of us don't know this, but a lot of us do, firemen have been famous over the years for actually being arsonists themselves. Sometimes in the past there wasn't enough fires and enough work to do, right? And they felt bored, so they would go and start fires so that their company could go put it out and look like heroes. There were also moments where people were just genuinely not the best of human beings, and they would start fires. And again, I'm talking about specific firemen. Now, I'm sure we can all agree 100% of firefighters, or 99.9, are actually wonderful, heroic men and women. But there's always that one bad apple. What if these firefights, or if these fires are being started by firefighters? So I think that's kind of scary. There's always the chance that there's a copycat person out there too. So imagine, that one homeless guy or whoever they caught that was trying to start a fire in the neighborhood and they all kind of tackled him. I could imagine people copying him. And don't you venters get any ideas? Yes, we walk, but we walk hoping to bring good into the world, not bad. So if you purchased a lighter, throw it in the trash. Here's the thing that's scary. When you talk about a world war, if you're Russian and you're already losing all these men every single week and every single month, and if you're Ukrainian and you're pretty much seeing all your young men and women perish as well, I could see a piece of them wanting to bring America into it, right? You don't like when you see your enemy just sitting on the sideline, not taking any wounded, right? Or not taking any damage. If you could get them into the fight, I could totally see Russia trying to get a world war started. I could totally see that. I guess what's really interesting from my point of view is that my mom, when she was growing up, saw as, people that she knew were, drafted into the war for Vietnam. She was able to witness that people actually went off to war. The only thing that I've witnessed, and you've probably witnessed, is people volunteering for, to join the armed forces. A lot of them went through that GI Bill because they wanted to go to college after they did their, term of service. And we were always so far ahead of everybody else around the world militarily. But this is a situation that's a little scary, because if ever we're told we have to go, some of you young men and women are literally going to be forced to go to war. And that just seems really freaky. I remember when I was younger, they would tell us stories of draft dodgers that would go up to Canada. Lily, you probably to this day hear about people in Canada that were probably Americans that were just ditching out on the Vietnam draft. I'm sure that they were known up there just as much as they were known about down here. And could you imagine if that happened again? All of a sudden you've got Americans going up to Canada and they don't even realize that Canadians are going to be drafted for that war too. It's like, oh my God, how scary. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we're taking the long route today. I started thinking about it. If I'm going to edit this video anyway, I might as well walk the long way around. Oh my goodness. You guys know how I'm always talking about the drug people down there. Look, there's an ambulance down there. Now, I don't wish bad on anybody, but wouldn't it be weird if there was a reason I decided to go the long route today? You know, sometimes you get used to a certain route in life and something just pushes you to go take a different route, right? So you're going down a different path. And that different path led me down this road today. And now we're gonna watch as an ambulance goes away, right? Here they go. Now the good news is they don't have their lights and sirens on, so I'm just gonna assume that probably they just came and somebody was having a little bit of a scare and they probably started feeling better, right? Sometimes you just want the ambulance to come and let you know that you're gonna be okay. And sometimes you start feeling better just by their presence being near you, right? And so maybe there's a good situation there, or for all I know, maybe they were taking somebody that already was gone. Who knows? That would be horrible, wouldn't it? God, what do you do if you find a perished body, an unalived body right there in your front yard? I guess you just call the 911 and whatever they send, they send. Little Pecky says, these children do not have parents guiding them, so they just make naive decisions. You know what's freaking me out? These children, and I would agree, high school kids are really just that. They're kids, right? Let's say age 14 to age 18 or 19. So you've got these bigger kids mixed in with literal younger adults, right? You get jealousies, you get anger, you get fighting, you get stuff that we would like to think would not happen as adults. But the reality is, even at places of where you work, people get in arguments, people pull out guns and weapons, and they end up doing stuff that's really silly. But here's the thing, I don't really get the vibe that these young kids nowadays are naive. I think because of the internet and the cell phone that they've grown up with, I think they know just as much about life through that cell phone as a lot of us do, because a lot of us find out about things that very same way through the internet and stuff. And I think for whatever reason, these kids nowadays are so much more adult than we used to be. We used to have moments of innocence. I feel like these kids are just growing up so fast and they make these rash decisions. And I don't get the vibe that this is just some naive kid that decided to take a gun to school and shoot somebody. I think this was probably something premeditated. We're probably going to find out that these two students either had some sort of love affair gone wrong, or maybe they were bitter enemies, right? I don't think we're going to find out that these two students were strangers to one another. So my question for you guys is, could you imagine when you were 17 being so angry with another basically kid that you would actually plot to go to a school, meet them in the cafeteria? Because that's one thing about lunch. You know when somebody has their lunch period if you go to the same school as them. And you know where they're going to be. They're going to be inside that cafeteria eating lunch. And it just seems like a real easy place to make somebody a target if you want to, premeditate something. And I guess it's just crazy. Don't get me wrong. These bad things happened when I was a kid too. But I just don't think they happened with this much regularity. And again, you're going to have the same people stand up and say, Jesse, we need to outlaw guns and stuff. But I think we can all agree if you take away the gun, this crazy person would have just grabbed a knife. His or her goals didn't necessarily even have to involve bullets. He could have done this with a knife, and that happens in England a lot of times. These things will happen, but there's no gun involved because guns are outlawed, so they just take clubs and knives and whatever else. Why are kids so hopeless nowadays? You remember how I told you guys if TikTok goes away, maybe there will be a blessing in disguise because of it? Well, TikTok only went away for 24 hours, maybe less. If people are that addicted to TikTok and they don't have the attention span and they try to solve their problems by just taking out a weapon and getting rid of their problem because they lived in a video game life where all the kids play video games all day. And pretty soon you become really good at taking people out in the video game, and there's a piece of you that starts to say, I could do that in real life. And sometimes these people do. And I just wish that we could get into their heads and say, kids, there's such a better way. And even if you did reach 90% of them, you're still going to have to deal with 10% of these kids that just kind of have this seed of evil in them. And I'm sure we're going to end up hearing that this person that did this was actually a good kid and their parents have no idea why they went off the deep end. But like I said, they're going to do an investigation and they're going to find out that this kid and whoever he took out, they're going to find out that they have some sort of history. Like I said, whether they're lovers or enemies, we're going to find out a big story about it. And it's probably going to be a pretty disappointing story that somebody knew this was going to happen and didn't tell. So once again, if you know your friends are going to do this and then they do it, I think you should get punished for that. I don't know if it should be 20 years in jail or anything horrible, but I think if somebody knows about this and didn't come forward and tell, maybe give them 1 or 2 years in jail, something so that, they know that what they did was not good. At Pamela Taylor says, so you take away the metal detectors, just like the budget cuts in LA. This is so very sad. So in LA, they do budget cuts, right? And before you know it, the whole city's on fire. And here in Tennessee, they do budget cuts, and before you know it, people are taking guns back into the school. I wonder if the gunman was aware of this. And if so, wouldn't that be crazy? You actually find out that the gunman found out a couple months ago. They yanked the metal detectors. And when they yanked the metal detectors, the gunman kind of put his plan into action. Where does your interest lie, guys? Do you get more interested in the world events like the Ukraine and Russian war? Or do you get more enthralled by, what Trump is doing, whether it be for him or whether you be for him or against him? Do you care more about what's happening with these kids nowadays and the fact that these shootings in schools keep seeming to happen more and more often and with more regularity? I don't know what the answer is, but it sure does seem like there should be some way to come up with an answer. And again, if you have to stock up every single school with a metal detector, let's quit reaching out to third-party companies to get their metal detector. And why don't you just pony up the money and actually buy a metal detector? If you guys know the reason why they can't do this, let me know. I'm always told that government has to be untied from the process, but it just seems weird that you always have these third-party companies getting rich. And I don't know, it just seems like a shame that they had metal detectors and now they're gone. And it also seems bad that they have policemen there on the campus, but nobody thought that it would be smart to have 1 or 2 police in the cafeteria where, oh, by the way, hundreds of kids are probably eating their food together. That seems like a place where there would be fights and a need for security. Anyway, have a wonderful day. I feel like every time I walk now, I don't necessarily have the best stuff to say, but either way, thank you for walking with me, and we'll see you tomorrow.